Good morning. I hope this day finds you well. Scripture says, "This is a day the Lord has made, and I will be glad and I will rejoice in it." I sure hope you find some gladness and some rejoicing and some joy in this day as you continue to enjoy the day that the Lord has made. This is Pastor Pat from Crossroads Christian Church. I want to say hi to all my friends, all my family, all the church, and God bless you. I miss you. I want to share a word with you this morning that I think is really good. And I want to talk to you about having the mind of Christ. Over the last few weeks, I've been talking to you about how God, I really believe, is testing our faith. And He's doing it for a reason, because He wants to increase our endurance through difficult times. I think He wants to separate us from the things of the world. He wants to impart to us His wisdom, because He does that when we're stable in everything we do, when our faith is in Him. James 1:3 says He gives us wisdom, and wisdom becomes a stabilizer in the midst of a crisis or in the midst of chaos. So He's stabilizing you by testing your faith. He's stabilizing you, and He's allowing you to develop wisdom so that you understand what God is doing and why He's doing it. Kind of like the men of Issachar. They knew the times and seasons they lived in, and they knew exactly what to do. Those were men of wisdom, and God is developing men and women of great wisdom in this day. So as I was thinking about this, and one morning, Allison Hammond sent me an interesting article from a book that she's reading called The Sacred Marriage by Gary Thomas. I've heard of it. And she sent me this article, and I want to read just one page of it because I think it's really worth thinking about. Listen to what he says. He's talking about marriage, and he's talking about how a couple becomes one. Scripture says, "And the two shall become one." And I've always said that becoming one is a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. So listen to what he says. He kind of testifies to that statement I just made. He said, typically it takes 14 years for a couple to become truly formed into one. This is because of what neurologists call neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity means that our brains are literally physiologically shaped by our experiences. Repeated actions create a neurological grooves that eventually become automatic, and that's what gives rise to addictions and to muscle memory and things like that. And he gives some examples. For example, if you pick up a golf club and you swing it enough, pretty soon you don't even have to think about what you're doing. You just sort of do it automatically. Or you play a guitar, or I can sit at a computer and I can type and I don't have to look at my fingers because of neuroplasticity. I've developed, excuse me, I got a meeting in just a minute. Hate when that happens. But it does. Technology can interrupt your day. Did you know that? It can be a good thing now. Here we go, moving on. So neuroplasticity creates these neural grooves, or these muscle memories that help us do things automatically, like drive home from someplace and you get home and you haven't even thought about it. It just automatically happens. You just arrive there and you say, "Oh, wow, how did I even get here?" But that's neuroplasticity, okay? Okay, so what he's saying is that when we're first married, our brains are stuck in a groove, in a singleness groove, he calls it. And we don't think of ourselves initially as a couple, but we still think of ourselves individually as two individuals trying to make this thing called marriage work. He says it takes about 15 years, 14 to 15 years to really develop a mindset of being a couple, where our minds actually begin to come together and we actually begin to think alike, and in some ways even act alike. And it's really true. I've been married 48, almost 49 years, and it's amazing. I can finish Doral's thoughts. I know what she's thinking just by how she looks at me. She's got that adored look, I call it. And you know what I'm talking about. We all have that ability if you've been married for any length of time, you've known somebody for any length of time. And so as I thought about that, I thought about, there's a certain comfort to that. There's a certain intimacy that develops over the years when you begin to become one in mind or have the mind of each other. And so as I thought about that, I thought, wow, you know what Scripture says? Scripture says we're to have the mind of Christ. Now think about that. We're to have the mind of Christ. In fact, 1 Corinthians 2:16 says it this way. For who can know the thoughts of God? Paul's asking a question. Who can know the thoughts of God? Good question. Then he asks another question. Who knows enough to teach him? Well, the answer to that is real simple. No one, because God's God. He knows everything, beginning to the end. And then he answers the question. He says, but we can understand the things of God, for we have the mind of Christ. There it is. So here's what I think. I think in the midst of all this crisis, in the midst of whatever's going on in your life right now, God is developing your faith, testing it, giving you endurance, separating you from things of the world or distractions or things that normally distract you, and helping you to focus in such a way that you develop the mind of Christ. You actually begin to think Jesus' thoughts in the midst of difficult situations. You begin to think like Christ when you found yourself in the past in confusion. You're no longer confused, but you're more focused because your loyalties are undivided, because your attention has been given to Him. And because of your attention's been given to Him, you're beginning to think like Him. You're beginning to feel like Him. You're beginning to have His very thoughts and His very mind. And I tell you, when that happens, doesn't matter what happens, you can get through a crisis. You can make it through because you'll think like He thinks and you'll see like He sees, and you'll understand the times and the seasons you're in, and you'll understand exactly what to do. That, my friends, is wisdom from God, and that comes as He tests our faith and as we develop the mind of Christ. That's an exciting thought, to have the mind of Christ. Well, God bless you. I love all of you. I'll be preaching on Palm Sunday. I got a great message. Man, this is a good one. This is a real, as we used to say, barn burner. I don't know where that comes from, but I'll have to look that up, barn burner. Anyway, it's going to be good. Hope to see you soon. Love all of you. I miss you a ton. God bless you. Have a great day.